you ever wanted to kill somebody, just take them on a cruise.
Exactly what has happened to their daughter is a mystery.
Because you'll never get caught.
We've all shared a gut feeling that's never gone away that she's still alive and she's still out there. And what we believe is that Amy was trafficked.
If you could talk to your sister right now, what would you say to her?
Amy, we've never stopped looking for you. We've missed you for 27 years.
Going on vacation with your family and friends is supposed to be the experience of a lifetime, especially on cruise ships. Taking a cruise today is the definition of what a vacation is supposed to be. You're aboard a huge ship fit for a whole population. Inside is an all-you-can-eat buffet, fun activities for all ages, live shows, but most of all, the beautiful scenery that you are surrounded by either with the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean. Ultimately, you are just getting away from it all. However, maybe that's the scary part about being on a cruise ship. Even though it could be a great escape, you're actually in the middle of nowhere with nothing but pure ocean surrounding you. Think about a cruise ship at night where there's nothing but pitch black and you can't see anything around you. Can you imagine if you fall overboard and nobody can hear you scream for help? Even though these instances may be rare, leading up to 2026, there have been a total of 19 to 25 overboard incidents occurring annually worldwide. Between 2009 and 2019, a total of 212 people have gone overboard a cruise ship. Another interesting statistic is there have also been a total of 25 cases where a person has gone missing on a cruise ship. And out of all these cases, Amy Bradley is the most notable case that has raised a whole lot of questions on her disappearance. In March of 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley boarded a Caribbean cruise with her family, then disappeared almost without a trace. A lot of theories are given on what might have happened to her, rather if it was fatality or underground kidnapping. This is what we are going to discuss on today's episode of Destructive Stories. By the way, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. I'm excited about what we are going to discuss today. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, also hit that notification bell as we are posting content every other week. With all that being said, thanks, and let's get started with today's episode. In January of 1998, Ronald Bradley won the Royal Caribbean cruise at his job, Illinois Mutual Life. It was set to board on March 21st, 1998 with Rhapsody of the Seas, owned by Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. It was initially supposed to just be him and his wife Ivy Bradley, but they decided to take their 2 college-age children with them. Their 2 children were named Brad Bradley and Amy Bradley, who was 23 years old at the time and just recently graduated college. She recently just became independent, moving into her own apartment and stepping into adulthood with excitement of what her future was going to bring. According to her friends, she was described as athletic, confident, and actually really close to her family. The trip aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas, once again operated by Royal Caribbean International, was meant to be a joyful escape. A few days of music, sunshine, and ocean views. But within just a few days, that dream vacation would take a turn to one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances in modern history. On the night of March 23rd, Amy spent the evening with her younger brother Brad, and the two eventually made their way into the ship's nightclub. Witnesses will later recall seeing Amy dancing and socializing, particularly with a member of the ship's band known by the nickname Yellow. Nothing about the interaction was immediately alarming, but it stood out enough that multiple people remembered it later. Amy appeared to be enjoying herself, laughing, dancing, and fully present in the moment. There were no signs of distress, no indication that anything was wrong. However, according to some witnesses, she also appeared intoxicated and had a discussion with her brother, who eventually left the nightclub, and Amy still remained at the club for another hour. Then eventually, sometime around 3:30 in the morning, Amy and Brad returned to their shared cabin with their parents, who were already asleep, and instead of going straight to bed, they stepped out on a small private balcony. They sat together and talked for a while. Eventually, Brad went inside, going to bed, leaving Amy alone on the balcony. A few hours later, sometime between 5:15 and 5:30 a.m., Amy's father, Ronald Bradley, woke up briefly. He glanced out toward the balcony and saw Amy lying on a lounge chair. She appeared to be asleep, or at least resting peacefully. Nothing seemed unusual. Reassured, he just went back to sleep. but then woke up again less than an hour later, and everything had changed. Amy was no longer there. At first, the family assumed she woke up and went to go catch breakfast early, but what was strange was that her sandals and shirt were still there. It appeared that she only stepped away for a moment, but her cigarettes and lighter were missing, suggesting that she may have gotten up on her own and intended to return. Her family went up to the breakfast lounge and saw that she was not there, nor was she at any parts of the ship where she could have been. It didn't make sense. People don't just vanish from a cruise ship, especially not in the middle of the ocean. There were no signs of a struggle when they returned back to the room. No noise or that anyone heard. No indication that anything violent had occurred. It was as if she had just simply disappeared into thin air during the window of less than an hour. Panic set in quickly. Her father began searching the ship, retracing steps, checking common areas, and asking crew members if they had seen her. When it became clear that Amy was truly missing, the family urgently pleaded with the ship's staff to lock everything down and prevent passengers from leaving, as they just boarded Curacao. But that didn't happen right away. As the ship docked into Curacao later that morning, passengers were allowed to disembark. In that critical window of time, thousands of people moved freely on and off the ship. If Amy had been kidnapped, it would have been the perfect opportunity for someone to remove her without detection. Eventually, a full search of the ship was conducted, but it turned up nothing. Cruise officials began to lean toward the explanation that Amy had fallen overboard. It was the simplest theory, an accident that occurred in the early morning hours. But for her family, it didn't add up. Amy was a strong swimmer and a former lifeguard. The balcony railings were high, making the accidental fall less likely. And, of course, if she did fall, since they were only a few miles away from Curacao, her body eventually would have turned up right away. No one reported hearing a splash or a cry for help, and despite searches of the surrounding waters, no body was ever recovered. The ocean, vast and unforgiving, offered no clues. As investigators looked deeper, the case became even more unsettling. Attention returned to the nightclub, and the band member known as Yellow, who had been seen with Amy the night before. While he denied any involvement, some of his reported behavior raised questions, including statements that seemed oddly timed or out of place. What raised these questions even more was some witnesses came forward and say that they spotted Amy with Yellow around 5:45 to 6 a.m. walking on the dock. Still, there was no concrete evidence tying him to her disappearance, and the case began to stall. So the cruise line ruled this as an obvious overboard fall. However, the family still believed something wasn't right, so they left the cruise ship and went into Curacao to search for Amy. Nothing turned up for her, so they decided to return back to the US. Then came the sightings. In the months and years after Amy vanished, multiple people claimed to have seen her in Curacao. One tourist reported seeing a woman matching her description on a beach, appearing tense and surrounded by men. Another far more chilling account came from a U.S. Navy officer who said while he was visiting a brother, a woman approached him and identified herself as Amy Bradley, pleading for help. According to his account, she appeared to be under the control of others, unable to leave, and held against her will. By the time this information was reported, it was too late to follow up effectively. Another famous sighting of Amy came from a woman who was on vacation with her husband in 2002 in a restaurant in Curacao, who encountered a woman who matched the description of Amy, but claimed that she had black hair and was in the appearance of a prostitute. She claimed that she asked the woman what her name was, and she claimed that she was Amy Bradley, had a southern accent, and had been held against her will for quite some time. She claimed that a man of Caribbean descent came into the woman's restroom, demanding Amy to leave. She walked outside with the man and said that she asked him if it was okay to go see her children. For years, close to a decade, the Bradley family were getting a whole bunch of false leads and supposed sightings of Amy, until 2005, the mystery deepened again, when the Bradley family received an email receiving photographs from an anonymous source of images showing a woman that appeared to be an escort on a website. And the resemblance to Amy was striking. The facial features, the posture, even subtle details seemed to align. The FBI analyzed the photos, but were unable to definitely confirm whether if it was her or not. For the family, it was both hope and torment. The possibility of Amy still being alive and held against her will, but suffering somewhere where they couldn't reach her. As interesting as the story may be, Amy Bradley is still missing and still has not been found, and her mystery still remains unsolved. Even though some people, like her family, believe that she is still alive and don't want to give up hope, there is still a wide amount of theories given about her disappearance. According to some close friends of Amy, they claimed that her home life was far from perfect. Some friends claim that Amy had frequent clashes with her family, most notably her father, in different areas of her life. Of course, the most prominent being her secret life of homosexuality, having a relationship with one of her basketball teammates, Molly McClure. Some people, which does include some former workers of the Royal Caribbean, have gone as far as accusing Amy's parents and brother of having something to do with her disappearance, since they were the last people to see her in the room, and surprisingly, all of her possessions were still there. Some people believe that Amy actually took her own life, as her ex-partner, Molly, said Amy wrote her a letter titling the letter "A Message in a Bottle," which was apologizing for how their relationship ended up and was appearing to say goodbye to her. Some believing it was actually a suicide note. But a more believable theory that has been floating around is Amy was kidnapped by an underground human trafficking group that was secretly being ran in the cruise ship. Even though Yellow, the man last seen interacting with Amy, pleads his innocence of his involvement of her disappearance, people, including the Bradley family, strongly believe his involvement due to his own daughter contacting the Bradley family in 2008, finding out that he did indeed have a secret life, as his wife would find a briefcase full of pictures of women who were aboard a cruise ship over his time working there. Eventually, some women have come forward and claimed that they were being harassed by Royal Caribbean workers, and some claiming they were trying to be lured in outside bars when exiting the cruise ship. Her family also claimed that other workers were noticeably friendly to Amy more than anyone else, and her brother Brad also claimed that when the disappearance first occurred, he claimed that Yellow approached him on the cruise ship saying he was sorry to hear about his sister going missing before it was even announced. Nearly 3 decades later, Amy's story still lingers as one of the most haunting mysteries at sea. A young woman goes to sleep on a cruise ship balcony, and by morning she's gone. No trace, no resolution, just questions that refuse to be answered. And somewhere in those unanswered questions is the possibility Amy Bradley's story didn't end that night, but continues, unseen somewhere in this world. And that is why this is on Destructive Stories. Thanks for watching.